Yeah, I'm Makenzie O'Neill. I am an associate professor of psychology, and I work at St. Mary's College of California. Today I'm going to talk about cuteness. The cuteness is a set of generally physical traits that we think about like babies or baby animals as possessing. So it's things like having a really big head with big eyes and like these short stubby limbs, maybe having a lot of like clumsiness or lack of coordination that, you can picture like a baby that's like stumbling down the hall and maybe falls over, like cuteness. And it's that kind of clumsiness mixed with these physical features that really define cute. I first became interested in this topic actually when I was in graduate school. And I just found it so fascinating that we have this thing that is cuteness where we're all just so enamored with these cute things. But all of the behavioral responses that go along with that it's not just like, oh, it's cute and we move on with our day. Our attention is gravitated toward these cute things and our behavior is really impacted by them. And I just found that really intriguing that what we might initially think of as really kind of simplistic or obvious has a lot of nuance to it that we might not right away consider. So typically when we think about studying cuteness, we think about those physical features that I mentioned earlier. And so if we're trying to define cuteness, we would want to demonstrate those characteristics. And so if I was doing a study where I wanted to show people or get people to think about cuteness, one of the best ways to do it is literally to show them pictures or videos of what we call targets, babies, animals that have these physical traits. So they are little babies that are short, stubby limbed, big eyes, big heads, little mouths, little noses. And that's really actually one of the best ways that we have to get people to have the kind of responses associated with cuteness. A second way that if we can't show people pictures or we can't show them videos for some reason, we can ask people to think about their own memories of a time when they were around something that they felt was really cute, and kind of what was that experience like for them? How did it make them feel? Or a kind of a third option, if for some reason either of those two don't work, we can even give people kind of a short story or a little vignette where they kind of read through what an experience might be like. So you might say something to the effect of, imagine, you're at a park and your niece is running toward you from the swings and her arms are extended as she reaches out to give you a big hug. While smiling and laughing, saying your name, like something like that, which would really kind of get you imagining that exact scenario to think about that cute thing, in this case, a niece or something.
And then what might you measure after they have, been inspired by the cuteness?
So you can measure their kind of physical responses. So recently I actually did some work where we were looking at like facial expression, kind of how do people physically look when they're responding to something that is cute, or behaviorally, what do they literally do in those situations? Or you can also look at kind of what you might even think of as like secondary responses. So do people's attitudes toward different things change, or their tendencies to behave one way versus another way? And so we can measure not only their response toward the cute thing directly, but how does responding to that cute thing maybe impact how you see the environment around you, or feel about other people that are in the environment. And so we can measure things like their attitudes and their behaviors as well.
Are we able to see what the cute face response looks like?
Oh man, I can try. It's been a while since I've had to do this, but it essentially looks like a smile with this like raising of the eyebrows and the chin, and like your mouth wants to say aw. So it looks something to the effect of aw. Yeah, that's a great question. is there a link between kind of sympathy and this cuteness response? There are certainly kind of overlapping muscle movements, but what we do see with the cuteness response is that kind of added smile. So there's the same features that you see in a smile that in a typical sympathy expression, you don't see that quite as much. Yeah, so this is actually an area that I've been really interested in recently. So when we think about responding to cuteness, it's typically thought of as a very positive experience, and it's warm and fuzzy, and it's delightful to look at something that's so cute, and it has all these positive outcomes. But kind of a maybe secondary response is that it also seems to inspire like a vigilance to the environment. And so if we think about responding to something cute, that cute thing, be that a baby or a puppy or something like that, usually needs to be taken care of, right? A baby can't take care of itself, and so we need to keep it safe, keep it warm, keep it clothed. And the important piece there with this vigilance is to keep it safe. One study that I've conducted fairly recently, we saw that people were presented with kind of an ambiguous situation, and then had to kind of write a story about this ambiguous situation. And we found that those that were responding to cuteness tended to write stories that leaned more in a negative in some way, where there was some sort of threat or some sort of bad thing happening in the situation, whereas people that were responding to other stimuli weren't showing that same outcome. Absolutely, I love that question. Yes, it does. I do think it is something evolved. If we think about kind of the underlying function here, human beings are born fairly helpless, kind of unable to take care of themselves. And so we needed a mechanism that would promote parents to care for their offspring, because it is hard to care for an infant. We, as a species, are a pretty high maintenance species when we're young. And so this idea of cuteness and this desire to care and protect your offspring was really necessary to allow the species to continue, or else we would have not made it past infancy. And so I think there's a really strong argument to be made for this being evolved, that we needed to be cute so that our parents would want to take care of us, and then the desire to care for something cute would further get promoted. So absolutely, I think there's a really strong argument there for that. Yeah, so that same study that I mentioned where the participants were responding to this kind of ambiguous situation and they had to write a story about it. So for a little bit of context, in that situation, so participants were shown an image, and it was literally an image of a couple of people sitting on a bench near a river. They're kind of facing each other, but you can't see their faces. And they were just told to write a story about what's going on in this image. And a lot of participants wrote stories like, oh, they're on a first date, or maybe they're breaking up, or it's a proposal, but things that were very kind of relational between these two people. But those people that were had just looked at images of babies and baby animals, so kind of are in this state of responding to cuteness, they were writing stories that I would describe as kind of off the wall, but kind of had very negative, threatening themes. And one in particular really stands out to me, where the participant wrote a story where it's a man and a woman in the picture, and the woman was a spy sent to kill the man, but it turns out the man was a double agent and he was going to kill the woman first. And it was really actually a great story. I would love to have read more about it, but very different from many of the stories we were seeing up until that point. All right, so here's my joke. A baby's laugh is one of the most beautiful things you will ever hear in your life. Until it's 3 a.m. and you're home alone and you don't have a baby.